All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the new episode of the Red Plates podcast. This is like 33. Again, getting deeper and deeper. We're going to be at 40, then 50, then 100. And it's pretty cool because lots of people have been asking, can you make an episode? And we had one of the episodes we had booked fell through, but we're filming anyway. And you know what? We brought Colton here. Colton helped us in the past with the Nationals preview show, the recap show, along with Dylan. And yeah, he's a good friend of the show. He's rocking the Red Plates podcast tee.
It's clean, man. It's really nice.
Hell yeah. That added like what, like 30 kilos to your bench, didn't it?
I think it might have taken away 30 kilos, but it could have been something else. Could have been anything.
That's
Still
because
the
Luke and Kyle's fine shirt.
me and Kyle touched that one too much and it's
Yeah.
just over.
Yeah.
But yeah, Colton, man, thank you for coming on. How are you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Yeah, I'm doing good. Just on a cut right now, so feeling nice and healthy. But still want to, try to be a little bit less shitty every day. That's pretty much the goal.
Yeah, that's all we can do. Just a
Yeah.
little bit less shitty every day.
Yeah. Yeah,
Fucking
exactly.
hard some days.
I think the saying's like 1% better, but it's just like for us, it's like 1% less shitty.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as you guys know, like the name of the podcast, like we are going to be giving some advice to the newer lifters and also using ourselves, our past selves as a reference. So mistakes that we've made and mistakes that we think people are making often in their powerlifting career. So we're gonna have Colton start us off and then just go through some things and hopefully you guys can learn a thing or two from this.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the biggest things, I think a lot of the advices that we can give kind of tie together, and they're all kind of related. But I think one of the biggest ones, at least for me, is that you don't have to max out every session to get better. So that was like kind of the biggest like bottleneck for me when I was like starting to power lift and wanted to get stronger. I would just take like an at 9 or at 10 single every week, and it would just be the same number every time. And then my elbows were shot to hell, and I felt terrible and didn't get stronger. And I was like, I don't know why I'm not getting better. Like I train so hard, and I'm not getting any stronger. So I think that's the biggest one.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's like levels to that, and like they all do kind of connect. I would say I've been at commercial gyms as well, and like I don't go there often. When you do, it's kind of like an ego boost, especially even if you're on
Yeah,
program. Like, you know,
yeah,
you just like are kind of like a god. And I was doing like I think like I don't know, a set of like a few reps, even triple at like 495 on squat, and like that's like a head turner over there, right? Like it is a pretty big set, I guess. Um, and people would come up to me like, "How are you? Like, how do you do that?" Like really like blown away. And they're like, "Why didn't you do more?" Like, because it was not hard, especially with the whippy bar. It was like it was
yeah,
easy. And I'm like, "Oh well, like that's like that's a part of it. Like, not all my training is actually that hard." And they were kind of blown away. And then like they went away and they were benching and I just seen them fail bench like three times. Like they were trying to hit a new PR. They came back to me and they were like, my bench won't go up. And I'm like, well, when's the last time like, you maxed out? Like they're like, I just seen them fail. They're like, oh, like 2 sessions ago I like maxed out. And I'm like, okay,
yeah,
like that's why. Like, like you guys gotta chill. Like you just see me, even though it's big and heavy, it's not hard in relativity for me. But yeah, that's something that I also was really bad at. One of the points I put down was the same thing as you: stop just trying to max out. That's actually not how you get stronger.
yeah.
Um, it's kind of like an indicator of like, are you getting stronger? But a lot of people think it's like the way. And so, yeah, that's a very good point. Trevor, do you have experience in this field?
Uh, I was kind of the opposite, to be honest. I think I got to a point where it was like I wasn't trying hard enough,
Oh
and then my
wow.
numbers shot up quickly. It was kind of backwards, to be honest.
Oh wow.
Like when I started, I think. But
Yeah, I mean, people fall into those two camps, right? Like you either are just going way too hard, and I think that one's actually more common because people, especially nowadays with Instagram, you see like these high level lifters. Say like Agatha would be a cool example. Her social media is definitely getting bigger. You could pick someone like I guess Russ, who you see lift heavy all the time, only heavy stuff, and it actually is like Russ would, especially like a few years ago, everything was like at 10 and he would recover somehow. But that's
mm,
him. So everyone kind of watches that, and then they're forcing things to happen. And they just think that's the way. But realistically, a lot of Russ's training, even if you watch his YouTube, like his back downs are so sub maximal. So he's like, slowly pushing that envelope. But people don't really see that or watch that. Like the things that pop off are like his, at 10 set. And so I think that's where people really get bad at it. I used to think it was more people in your boat though. Like you're not training hard enough. But I think some people are just constantly maxing out, and that's where you're like kind of burning yourself every single time. There's no momentum to be built, like Colton was saying. He was just spinning the wheels.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
think it
think
was
it.
like mostly on squat that I didn't like push that hard. I remember my buddy that got me into powerlifting, he had gone to school or something, and I kept training. And I think I had squatted like 515, and I thought that was my max. And he came to the gym with me one day, and I just squatted 585 because he just was like, no, another 20 pounds, another 20 pounds, another 20 pounds. Because I just didn't know how to like what it felt like to actually grind through a big squat. I don't know. I was probably scared, I guess, because I was just squatting in a commercial gym with Paige. So it's like, I don't
Yeah.
know. If I
Yeah.
fucking fail, it's over.
Yeah, I think it can depend on people's backgrounds and personalities as well. Like Luke
Mm.
said, if they're like constantly on Instagram looking at lifters, I think sometimes when people start lifting, they maybe haven't seen like a ton of lifting Instagram. I mean, for myself, like it wasn't even a thing when I started lifting weights, so I can't really relate as much to somebody who comes up in this time. But like I feel like people coming from a sports background, the coaches are always like, you need to train harder, you need to push harder. Like it's never about. I've never heard a coach from a sports team, at least like when we were kind of coming up, be like, "Oh yeah, you need like a deload." Like I didn't even know what deload meant, you know.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you come from that background and you apply that to training, um, like it's not gonna probably not gonna go the best. But it's nice that the benefit of that is you know how to train hard because that is like an important skill. Like you do need to know how to work hard, but it's just about working smart too, right?
Mhm.
But then if you have people that are come from like they never played sports before and they get into powerlifting, they're usually just like kind of like more like the Trevor camp of like never like going up or being scared or like they have like some minor ankle pain and they're like, oh, like I can't like squat hard because they never like played through an injury before. You know what I mean? So like I think it depends largely on the background too.
Yeah. I'd say similarly too, like people that sandbag the fuck out of their accessories. There's a lot of people I think that do that. I like fuck, I'm guilty of that sometimes. But I think
Mhm.
especially like when you've been training for powerlifting for say like 3 or 4 years, you have to push your accessories hard because your body is like used to pushing against that weight. If you're
Yeah.
just blowing through your accessories and everything is like RP2, you're not really accomplishing anything.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we talked about it a bit on the Marcellus podcast where like I've heard people have come up to me and said like, do you skip your back down sometimes? And like I was like, wow, that blew my mind. Like, no. But also like, do you skip your accessories is a question that people ask and like, or they'll just do it and they don't even care. Or they just go through the motions, right? Like, oh, my workout's done. I did my top set. I don't care how the back downs move. I don't care about the accessories, but we'll get into these points in a second because they all kind of bridge together, as Colton said. But you need to push them. Like that's like how both of these guys that I'm speaking to bench over 500 pounds. Like they couldn't do that by just hitting a top set and not like putting on size. Like they're both also 300 plus. Like they're big boys. Like and that's how they're getting it done. One thing I would say too about the accessories is like you can actually push them a lot harder than you'd think if you kind of work up to it. You can't just like listen to this podcast and be like, I'm gonna make a change. And I like let's say you never really did push accessories. And then now you're like, Luke, Trevor, Colton said I got to. They bench five, Luke doesn't, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna push hard. Because you could really start like, going down the other realm where like you're gonna mess up your tendons, your joints are gonna be sore, you're not gonna feel good. But one thing that I would say is for myself, I kind of realized maybe in 2022 that I could have been pushing my accessories a lot harder. And it's kind of like what Trevor was saying, where like you felt like you were hitting a max or like your top end high fatigue stuff or high RPE, but you actually have more. And the way that I kind of realized this was I was training with Jeff Nippard, and I actually think this is the one that I put on YouTube. And so obviously, I think most people know him. We had a day where he was kind of getting into powerlifting, so he wanted to train and do that. And then I wanted to do some upper body accessories because that's what my program said. So he squatted like 215 kilos. And I think that was an all time PR or a match. And he was like, Luke, like it's supposed to be at RPE 8.5. Like, what do you think? And I was like, no, like that was easy. Like it was like a 7. You should do more. That's how you're gonna get stronger. So I think he went up and he hit it. Um, and he did it well. And then we went to the accessories, and he comes from more of that bodybuilding background, and I'm more in the powerlifting strength area. So then we go to accessories, and I'm doing like my chest flies on one of the cool machines at Pure. I'm like getting a pump, like I'm pushing hard, and then I'm like, okay, I'm done. And it was supposed to be like at like RP 8, 9, whatever. And he's like, bro, he's like, and like I think it's on camera anyway, but I remember he's like, bro, like, what are you doing? Like, you have like 6 more. And I was like, no, I don't. He's like, just keep going. And I was like, whatever. It's just like I'm not competing soon. I'll just see what he's like doing. And I kept going, and they were really hard, but I just kept banging them out. And like by the end, I had done like 5 more, and I was like, oh wow, like like I really did like sell myself short there because I felt the soreness, and I kind of was like, okay, we're good. And I did push hard, but not like as hard as I could have. And so then that kind of opened my eyes to like, oh wow, maybe I'm not even pushing these hard enough. And so yeah, it's just kind of like a full circle moment where like it depends on your background. Because like Jeff was gonna call his top set early, and that was the end of his block, and I was like, no, go up. And then for accessories for me, I'm like out here being a baby, thinking I'm training hard, leaving a lot of room on the table, especially for building muscle mass, like as a natural lifter.
Yeah.
Even in a big surplus, it's like you have to really push, especially at like the right times.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the one thing too. Like, if you're somebody who doesn't like going into the gym and doing like an RPE 6, like maybe like a squat single, or whatever, but like you're in a lighter week, at least you can go like push accessories hard. Like, so you can still train smart and train hard at the same time, but just doing it in the appropriate way, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. It's hard too because like when we're saying these things, like you could be on either side. So like maybe you do have to go and undershoot a little bit more than like what you're currently doing. Like, if it's like a week 2 and like it's a single at like I don't know 7, let's say, like you don't need to maximize and hit like 7 to 7.5. Like it's okay if it's a little bit easier, as long as we are like having like a kind of like a structure of how we're going to make progress throughout the block. So it's like a balance. But yeah, you can't be too far on either side.
Yep.
Okay. Kind of bridging into like something very similar. The main one that I wanted to talk about was that weight classes should not exist in your mind when you're starting. Majority of us coming into the sport are coming in here, I'd say, at least from the people that I coach and when I have consultation calls with people or even just people I know, you want to get bigger, you want to get stronger, more than likely. You didn't know that the 66 kilo class or 59 kilo class or 74 kilo class existed. You just came in here to, better yourself, be bigger, be stronger. So when you're new, you shouldn't be too worried about the weight class or what your dots will be. You should just be focused on the things that we said before, like, just trying to put on more muscle because it is a very hard thing to do. I think you can see like memes often where like girls will be like, oh, I don't want to like train too hard, or guys, like, I don't want to train too hard because I don't want to get too jacked. And it's like, bro, it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard to get jacked. Um, so yeah, I would say like don't worry too much about weight classes. This is something I was in a trance of like, oh, I need to be 74 because like my numbers are pretty good, or like I'm close to like this like um coefficient score or whatever. And that's probably like Colton and I were talking about this earlier, like one of my biggest regrets. Like I don't really regret it, but if I could go back and tell myself something, it would be like, bro, just go up. It's okay if you're not good at 83 for a long time. But like, old you when you were like 18 didn't know about 74 kilos. Like you'd want to be bigger than that. Like, just allow yourself to grow. So that's a big one, and that's one that really affected me.
Me too.
Yeah, I guess you
Yeah,
guys
I mean,
don't.
I'll play the other side of that just to, kind of have more of an in-depth conversation about it. But I think one thing too is like obviously you want to grow and not limit yourself to a class. Like you have no idea what the best class is for you when you're just starting out. And I think it's important to, allow yourself to grow and get stronger. But I also think, I mean, I think a mistake that I made, kind of the same thing that Luke was saying, like a regret, but I don't really regret it because I learned from it. But that was just like gaining weight too fast. So I remember like when I was first trying to get into a competition, this is like years before I actually did, just because of some circumstances. But I was like 236 or 237, and I couldn't lose any weight. I wanted to be a 105 because I was like 265 is way too big. And I couldn't lose any weight. I had no idea what like a water cut or a gut cut was. Like I didn't know any of that stuff yet. And my buddy was like, dude, you're way too big for 105, bro. Like, just go up. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then I just started gaining weight so rapidly. Like, I just started eating like insane. I'd eat like a frozen pizza or maybe even two every night. I would have like 12 scoops of protein a day, like ripping like ice cream or Dairy Queen. Like, I would eat like a lot of clean food, but I would also eat just a lot of like junk on top. So I was like, oh, I just need to get as big as possible. And then I just got so fat and shitty. And I just think that that's something that you really want to avoid as well. I think it's less common now because people are more concerned about their physique and how strong they are, maybe like too much. Um, but that's just like from a personal experience for me. Like I wish I'd gained weight a lot slower. I think I could have like milked the surplus a lot more, just gained more muscle mass and less adipose tissue, just less fat. So if you are somebody who's a bit bigger, and you do want to gain weight, just do it smart and do it slow.
Yeah. No, that's super valid. Trevor, you want to talk a little bit about your diet and things you've done in the past?
Well, I'm also a fat piece of shit, so no, I know some guys like lifted with in junior definitely did that. They kind of like forced the bulk and got too big, and then they're like, "Fuck, I'm fat and really not healthy," and then kind of had to cut and disappear. I think like getting bigger and putting on muscle is obviously a good thing, but if you're gaining 30, 40 pounds in a year, like that's crazy. You're not, it's not muscle. You're gaining a couple pounds of muscle and 30 pounds of fat. So I think it's definitely something you want to do slow. I'm probably not the best example ever, but like when I started lifting, I was like 130 kilos at my first meet, I think, in like 2018, because I'm fucking old. And now I'm like 150 something, 6, 7 years later, which I think I did I definitely could have done better, but I think I did a pretty good job of coming up. It's just like slowly, like 3, 4, 5 kilos a year, kind of for like 6 years to get here.
Hmm. Yep. No, I think you're right on the money with that because some people are gaining way too quickly. And like what I was saying is like you should probably be gaining, but there's definitely two sides to the argument. Um, and yeah, there's examples all over of people doing too much of an aggressive bulk or just trying to maintain like a certain weight class that's not good for you. That's why like the main thing I would say is like kind of forget about weight classes as a whole. I think Colton's was a good example that he used. He's like, I want to be 105. And then I think probably in your mind you can confirm Colton, but it's like, okay, well if I'm gonna be a 120, I'll be full 120. You know, like why would I be 107? Like that's dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that then I got kind of got into this area where like I went way past 120. And then I was like, like around like I don't know, 127 or 128 or something. And I was like, okay, I'll try doing the cut to 120. And I died. Like I made it, but like I died, didn't perform very well. And then I was like,
Mhm.
okay, like what am I gonna do? Like I was like chilling around 280, 285, felt pretty good there. But I was like, I want to win Nats. Like, I like, there's no way I can compete with these guys like, at 285. And then I just got super big, and I didn't even really get that much stronger. Like at a certain point, like gaining weight, um, it does help you get stronger, but only to a certain point. There's diminishing returns, right? And I kind of found that spot where like I didn't even get stronger. My work capacity went way down, and then I actually like got weaker. So I think
Mhm.
just making sure that um like you said, Luke, like don't worry about the weight class or like how competitive you're going to be. Like you're just starting out. Like don't worry about that until the time comes. Like once you're strong enough to be competitive, then you can start to worry about that kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
I
Yeah,
think too, as a
100%.
super, like some people say to me sometimes, why don't I get bigger? I think when most supers are taller and bigger guys, but like at my height and build, for me to be big enough to squat like say 950 or something, I'd have to be like 420. Like me putting on 10 pounds doesn't really do a lot for my leverages just because like my arms are long, like everything on me is long.
Yeah.
Like for me to get that big to make it that big of a difference, I'd have to be fucking 200 keys.
Yeah, I mean, even with you, like we like played around with your diet and made it a lot cleaner. Like when you were just like eating like random shit, like you were not stronger, you know? So
No, like I was heavier before and I was not stronger.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it just goes back into that earlier point where like people talk about just wanting to not get too big muscular wise. Like it's not a normal thing that people say, but it's like really hard to do. So if you're gonna gain like 20 or 10 pounds in a year, it's not all gonna be muscle anyway. So that's why it's better to take it slow. And I think Trevor said like five, you said like 5-ish kilos a year. And that's still like a lot for it to be like actual like lean tissue. Obviously, you're a big, tall
Yeah.
guy,
That
so
was
it's a
for
little
me, like
different.
being a big guy, obviously. Like if you're 70 kilos and you're putting on 5 a year, that's a lot more than me being 130 and putting on
Yeah.
5 kilos.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like dependent on the person,
Yeah.
leverages too. Um, at a certain point, like you guys said, if you just keep putting on the weight, it doesn't mean you're going to get stronger or better at like, each lift. A lot of the time too, if you're like, I feel like a lot of people do need to fill out their frame more. Like even if you're like around like my
Mm.
height, like you could be thicker. Like it's gonna
Yeah.
help you. It's gonna help your leverage for the most part. But if you're like, my height, which is like 5'6" or whatever, and you're like, you know, 240, then it's like, okay, like, deadlifting can be hard, especially for, I mean, at least most people. I'd say like Ashton is like around my height and like he's like around that weight and he can deadlift pretty well. But for most people, is like Ashton's an extreme example of someone who puts on muscle tissue extremely well and easily, like not easily, but yeah, kind of, especially in correlation in comparison to everyone else. It's like
Mm.
he's 230, but it's mostly muscle. If it was
And his arms
me,
Mm.
are his arms are so long that he's gonna lock out low enough that his leverages aren't gonna get too fucked from being big.
Mm.
mhm,
If you've got like shorter arms and you get fat, like you're fucked. Like
It's over.
it doesn't matter how much you add to your bench at that point, like your deadlift is gonna be so bad that you're not gonna be competitive with like how good people are getting at deadlifting.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think like where powerlifting is now, like being really good at two lifts and fucking horrible at one, it's going to be really hard for you to be good.
yeah.
Like you kind of
Especially
need
the
to be able to do
deadlift.
both of them.
It
Yeah, the
like,
deadlift is the most advantageous lift, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But I think most people. I mean, it's hard to say. Like, I would say most people could probably put on more weight and be better off. But it depends on you and where you're at. So obviously, take that with a
yeah.
grain of salt, right?
I think like people cutting for local meats is crazy. Like
Mhm.
that
Yep.
doesn't make any sense. Like if you're a kilo over, sure, but you hear all the time if someone's like 5 kilos overweight and they're cutting for a local. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, or they're like, oh, like I just want to be 5 kilos lighter. I'm like, well, then lose 5 kilos of body weight over time. Like you're gonna be 5 kilos less than you are now for one moment in time when you step on the scale, and then you're gonna be
Yeah.
5 kilos heavier later that day. What did losing those 5 kilos do for you? Like, I just want to be 5 kilos lighter. It's like, okay, just lose 5 kilos then at that point if
Yeah.
that's your goal. But I think like that kind of leads into one of the things I want to talk about as well, which is just the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. Um, and the reason why I bring that up is because I feel like people have like conflicting goals a lot when they're starting. They're like, I want to be super lean, I want to be super jacked, I want to be super strong. Like, and obviously, like when you're just starting out, it's easier to do that, like get leaner and more jacked and stronger and stuff. But I think just picking a lane, like, okay, what are my goals? Like, what do I actually want to do? And just focusing on that for a long time is big because a lot of times people are just like, they gain 5 or 10 pounds, like, oh, I gained a little bit of fat, I need to cut now. You know what I mean? They just kind of start, they just keep spinning their wheels because like they're focusing on so many goals at the same time. So I think just like figuring out like what is the main thing you want to do and then focus on that.
Mm.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. You got to commit. Like pick something and then just commit to it. And like if it was bulking, like you're like, okay, I'm gonna get bigger. Just know that like we talked about it, it's hard to put on muscle. You're not just gonna put on that much muscle in 6 months and not put on body fat. You're just gonna have to accept that you will put on a little bit more fatty tissue as well. It's not just gonna be pure lean muscle. And then once you start to see, you're getting a little chunkier, don't just like, okay, no, I'm cutting, and just go back and forth and yo-yo it and like make no progress in either way.
Yeah, you could probably just hit a maintenance phase and just like recomp. Like you're especially like we're talking about like younger lifters, right? Or like people who are just getting into lifting. Like if you're just ripping a maintenance, like you're gonna lose some body fat and gain some more muscle, and then you can just kind of keep it moving after that.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I did when I went from 74 to 83. It's been 3 years. It was like 2022 till now. Actually, May, so it's like pretty much exactly the same. And then I just got heavier. The last time I weighed 163 was like for 1 minute at that nationals, and then it was like okay, now I'm 170. Then I'm finally 183, and for the past while, I've been making weight quite easily. But like my macros are very similar, and over time I've gotten a little less or a little more lean and a little bit bigger. But it's not like I'm constantly like fluctuating between a big bulk and a big cut. And that's also more realistic for like performance and powerlifting too. If you're just kind of having like at least like a slight surplus or a slight deficit or
Yeah,
maintenance, not like I'm gonna put on 20 pounds. Oh wait, I'm too fat, lose 10 pounds. It's like,
yeah.
you want that consistency because like even in training, like consistency is it's very helpful to see where you're going. And if you're eating way less, you're in a big deficit, you're expecting to keep all the numbers, it's probably not realistic.
Yeah, it's good you brought up consistency. That's one of the things I wanted to talk about too. I know it's kind of a simple thing. It's like, yeah, just be consistent. What does that really mean? I think like no one's gonna like powerlifting is not a full-time job. Like you're not just gonna mouse jiggle and powerlift and spend all your time powerlifting and eating and never have to go to university or school or work or have a family or whatever. I think that's when consistency becomes really important. Like whether you've stalled or you're not making progress or like things get hard at school or like you're working overtime or something, like can you show maybe you can't like put like 6 days a week into powerlifting, but can you show up 3 days a week, 4 days a week? Like, what can you do? And figuring out what you can do consistently based on your circumstances and just continuing to go on rather than like taking 3 months off. Okay, now my schedule is clear. Now I'm going to powerlift again for 6 months. Oh, now things are getting hard. Now I take 2 months off. You know what I mean? Or like, oh, like I don't like powerlifting anymore because I didn't make progress for a block. And it's just like staying consistent and like that doesn't mean you need to train 6 days a week or like always be dialed in your macros every single day constantly when you're just getting started out. But it just means like showing up and yeah, just being consistent as much as you can based on what you're going through, right?
Yeah. Yeah, some of like my lifters who make actually the most consistent, repeatable progress, like we can predict what's going to happen, are people that only train even 3 times a week. And they have some pretty intense, like either schooling or job, and they have like shift work. So things are all kind of all over the place. But instead of saying, I'm going to train 4 times or I'm going to train 5 times, they know I can only train 3 times a week. So we made like a whole plan around that. And there's no like, oh, I'm missing the fourth day today. There's no fourth day. We go in 3 times, we do what we need to do, and then we try our best to like, outside of the gym, do everything we can, eat, sleep the best we can.
Yeah.
It's not going to be perfect, but they're not being unrealistic with what they can actually show up and do like week after week. And like, yeah, they make good progress, and you don't need to be in the gym 6 times. You don't need to be, perfect all the time. You just need to do what you can do consistently.
Yeah. And that kind of rolls right into the next thing too, which is just being process oriented. So instead of worrying about like, oh, I need this result in like this amount of time, if you just focus on the things that you need to do, the things that are going to get you the results, that's how you end up getting there without even having to worry about it. So like in your scenario, it's like this person can only train 3 days a week. Like, don't worry about what would happen if you could train five. You can't.
Mm.
So just focus on the 3 days you can train, focus on like hitting your meals, getting your sleep in, having the lowest amount of stress you possibly can. Like just focus on the process of things that are going to help you get better rather than just being like, oh well, like I didn't get my 10 pound bench PR, so it's over.
It's over. Yeah. Now you can definitely see like it doesn't happen all the time, but people are like that, right? Where they have like this idea of what they're going to achieve, they don't achieve it, and then they start second guessing like what's the point of doing this? Like is it even worth it? Like am I made for this? Like all these things, right? So it's just understanding like if you put in the work and then like let's say you have a coach, you talk to your coach, you guys can kind of figure out what you need to do differently and then just get back into the swing of things. Um, One thing I'd say too is like a lot of people, they'll get closer to a meet and be like, okay, now it's time to lock in. And like they'll start they'll
Yeah.
start just doing everything that they should have been doing the whole time. and just doing it now. And they'll be like, okay, well, I'm 8 weeks out. That'll be enough. If I can, instead of sleeping 4 hours a day or a night, I'll sleep now. I'll try and get 8, and I'll try and do everything I should have been doing the whole time, and then expecting some crazy big different outcome. Of course, maybe it'll help a bit, but at the end of the day, like if it's something that you could have been doing the whole time, it's just about, like you said, just having a consistent, reliable schedule and doing that, and not expecting like, oh, meet's coming up, I need to lock in, I need to turn everything up, um, or like even start overshooting because like I need to hit this number so that on the platform I can do, X.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think being pretty locked in most of the time is better than being not locked in at all and then super locked in for a short period of time. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe you can't fit in like 8 hours of sleep every night forever. Like, it might not be realistic for you, but can you sleep 7 instead of like 4? Or like, can you like hit your protein at least? Like maybe your macros aren't perfect, but you make sure that your protein is like a non-negotiable. Like you're hitting that no matter what. And just fine. Of course, it's okay to like get a bit more serious in prep. Like, okay, like now I'm gonna like really prioritize this. But if you're going from like 4 hours of sleep to 8, like that's a lot different compared to going from like 6.5, 7 hours to like 9 or something like that, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think you kind of explained it a little better than I did because it's like obviously if you can lock in more, then that's good. Obviously, like we're not saying don't try for your meet, but you could probably bridge the gap and do something
Yeah.
decent majority of the time. But yeah, like the non-negotiables are pretty helpful too. Like you had the quad scoop, right? Like to get the protein in.
Yeah, it was just
Yeah.
like I think they're important, like depending on where you're at. That one was kind of extreme. It was just like no matter where I'm at, no matter how much protein I've had, I'm gonna have a quad scoop before I go to bed. Um, I don't know. I think a lot of times it was just like a mindset thing of
Yeah.
like I'm locked in, like I'm doing this and like it's gonna and because like I thought that way, like I was experiencing the results. But having like non-negotiables are really good. It's like no matter what, I'm hitting my protein or like it could be anything. Like no matter what, I'm gonna go to sleep by 11 p.m. Like that is the absolute latest I'll go to sleep. It could be really
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And then just like having those and not really letting yourself ever break them, like legit non-negotiables, it does like mentally help you because you're like, you know what? Like this is like a standard that I have for myself. And because of it, it's something I wasn't doing before or wasn't doing consistently before. It's like a level up in your mind. You're like, I'm going in for this set right here. I know I can do it. I've been locked in. I've been hitting my quad scoop. I've been getting my step count. Whatever you're not doing, you can just kind of find a way to optimize that. Another example too is like we're not saying like you got to go all in. I've had like some lifters come to me recently. We're talking about like calories and macros, like what do you consume? And it's like the fat and carb content is super high. And the calories are there, but the protein is just like super low. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, instead of jumping to like, you have to have 180 grams of protein, if you're used to like 40 to 60, and that's the reality, even just having a bit more because you'll consistently have it. And like by a bit more, I mean like almost double, like 80 to 100 or 120, and just slowly up that instead of flicking like a switch and just expecting yourself to be perfect. It's just trying to meet yourself where you're at and then
Yep.
progress from there. That's like the biggest thing. Because if you try and do something completely different, you're likely going to do it until you're not motivated and then you'll fall off.
Yeah, that's classic, man. Like you'll see people who train like 0 times a week or maybe like once every now and then and they're like I need to train 7 days a week or like 6 days a week and it's like, well, yeah, you're going to feel really motivated for the first like week or two and then you're going to burn out and you're probably never going to train again.
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to get super sore and you're going to be like, why would people do that?
Yeah, I think, yeah, this is kind of like diverting from what we've been talking about, but I think a really important one too, especially when you're first getting started out, is to have fun. I think not a lot of people prioritize having fun enough, and like we're doing
Yeah.
this like obviously for many different reasons, depending on who you are and what your reasoning is. But at the end of the day, if you're not having fun or enjoying your training, it's never going to be great. Like I think like one example too, like with some athletes that I coach, like I'm like, yeah, like let me know like a few accessories that you hate doing and like I won't program them. And like I'll find something that you do like doing because I know that like it's like okay, well like Bulgarian split squats, it's just so optimal. But it's like if I program it and somebody hates it and they never do it, then we're getting zero result compared to doing like a leg press or a single leg press or something similar that they're going to be able to push hard and have fun. So I think that's important too, is just like finding ways to have fun in the gym when you're getting started out. Like, what are the movements I like doing? What are the accessories I like doing? And then just having fun progressing them.
Oh yeah. No, that's key. I've had like a few people, I mean, they'll come to me and tell me that, like, hey, I don't want Bulgarians. And I'm like, yeah, I think they're good, but if you don't want them, you're not going to do them, then yeah, we won't program them and we'll do something else like that you will enjoy. And then just if you have a coach, having that open line of communication with them, not feeling like it's bad to let them know, like, hey, I'm not enjoying training right now. Can we switch things up? And then
Yeah.
hopefully your coach is receptive to that. Like they obviously want the best for you. Um, and like also it depends on your goals too, right? Like if you're talking about I want to be like national champ or I want to be like world champ, like whatever your wildest goals or dreams are, but then you're saying like I'm not doing like whatever the coach is programming. It's like, hey man, like what do you actually want? What you say you want? So I think that's one too, is like having your goals, like having your actions match your goals is another one.
Yeah, for sure. Because like we're talking about people who are just starting or newer. Like if you're somebody who wants to be a national champ or go to worlds, and you're like, oh, I just don't like doing this exercise. Like not because it causes you pain or like there's an
Yeah.
actual issue. Like you just don't like doing it. It's like, come on, bro. But like when you're just getting started out, like I think just having fun is good. I think like with the Bulgarians, like with people that come to me, it's like 50-50. Like half of people are like, put them in my program, like I love them. Like even if I wasn't planning on doing it, they're like, put them
Mm.
in my program, like I love them. And then the other half are like, please never give me Bulgarians. Like I hate them.
They're not that bad. Why do people hate them?
I guess like the setup can be kind of annoying. I don't know. It's less convenient. And the
You just need
burn.
a bench or a block, or
I think
I
they're just
think
hard. I think
yeah,
some people just don't like doing shit that's hard.
yeah.
if
And the
my big
balance.
fat ass can do them with no hip, like they're not that hard.
Yeah. Well, I think like progressing them can sometimes be hard, like depending on how they're programmed. If you're like trying to get decent weight up, or even like people's balance, it's like why they're actually quite helpful too. Is like it kind of gives you like you have to be good at balancing and distributing your weight. I guess some people are really bad at it and they hate like looking bad or being weak, but progressing those things and getting better at those things is kind of the key. But
Mm.
they're not like necessary. Like I haven't done them. I don't think probably like 4 years. It's not like they're the exercise, but yeah, like they
Yeah,
are
you got a pretty
definitely.
you got a pretty good squat without the Bulgarians, buddy.
Yeah, fuck,
It's
throw
not
them
bad.
out. You guys don't need them.
Fuck them.
Maybe I need them, and then I'll be squatting like 8. Holy shit,
Maybe.
could be. Um, but yeah, no, I agree. I actually haven't had anyone say, maybe one or two people say program them, but they definitely are one that people bring up often. Like they're one of the more popular exercises to discuss.
Yep.
I love them. I owe my whole life to fucking Bulgaria.
It's Bulgaria. Do you actually really like them that much?
Lately, I've been liking them. Yeah,
Hmm.
I don't
How
know.
heavy do you
Feels
go?
good, bro. I'm fat. What do you mean?
What does that mean? You
Oh my
just
god.
just body
Like I
weight?
might hold a 25-pound plate.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to do anything crazy with them, but I think maybe like yeah, that's why people don't like them, like just trying to put heavier loads. But again, you are a big boy.
For me,
So
it's like the balance and shit is mostly
the
the
issue.
part that's hard.
Yeah.
Especially on my left leg, I fucking pretty much have to hold myself up. It's good.
Yeah. Um, we kind of already touched on this in a way. I don't know if we brought it up word for word, but like we said stop overshooting. But like really I think when people have top sets, they need to stop prioritizing the top set like it's the only thing that matters. Um, so like when you have like a program, like let's say you have at the end of the week, say Friday, you have a squat single or deadlift or bench single at 8. You shouldn't be like, unless it's specified, you shouldn't be pulling back your other days to make this number artificially inflated, right? Like you don't need to put up this big. And also, I probably fall victim to that sometimes. It's not like I don't care about my back downs. I care about everything that I'm doing and I put effort into it all. But I'm probably like, say it says a triple at 8, and be like, I got to put up something nice. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't then just undershoot everything, like not follow the program to try and make that day feel better. And that's something that I think people also do because people kind of live for like the Instagram posts and like getting like the comments, like good work, man, or like just getting like shares, which obviously can feel good when people, compliment you and big you up and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like your top sets don't need to be performing at the top end all year round. And that's something that I think people need to understand.
Yeah, I think this is a good topic to touch on, like instant gratification versus delayed. And like right now, obviously, with the internet, Instagram, Reels, whatever, TikTok, whatever you like, you can get so much just instant gratification, instant dopamine, whatever. But powerlifting is one of those things that can be so good for learning delayed gratification if you allow it to be. But if you're just one of those people who, again, like you're just living for Instagram, you just want the gas, like you would get more gas if you just followed your program and then had a bigger result later. But instead, you're like, oh, I need like a bit of gas now, you know? But if you're able to stay patient and just keep working hard and working smart, then you'll have a much bigger payoff later. And you can either allow that to be something to learn from, or you can just keep going down the rabbit hole of I need gratification right now. Like I need people to like my post, I need people to gas me up or whatever. And at the end of the day, you have to figure out like, are you doing this for yourself? Are you doing this for you truly, or are you doing it because you want people to, like gas you up and shit?
Mhm.
One of
Yeah.
my favorite ones is when people post a single and they're like, "Holy shit! Look where my week one single is at now." Like what?
Week one PR.
Yeah, like, what?
Do less in week one. You'll do more in week four.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a coach or a fucking rocket scientist or anything, but like, I don't ever see how starting heavier is going to make you end heavier. Usually, I don't know.
Mhm. No, that's really valid. I think a lot of people with that kind of programming style, like let's just say you're running like a 4 week block and like just like you're running like RP 5, 6, 7, 8 or whatever, and you're trying to like I don't know, you kind of disregard the RPE and you're like, okay, well if I start my squat at 260, then I can end at blank. It's like no, man, like you could also start much lighter and just kind of pace yourself out. I think Trevor, you could probably actually speak on this a good amount because you have experience with like pacing out your block really big jumps. So maybe talk about that because I think you do have something good to share there.
Yeah, I always find like I'm a bigger guy, so it's different probably than a lot of people. But like I squat and deadlift almost 8, and most of my starting weights for a block are like 5, like 500. Like I don't
Mhm.
understand. Like I don't know. See some people on like a week 2, they're like, "Oh, look at my week 2 weight," and it's like RP9. I'm like, so where are you gonna go 2 weeks from here? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't really
Yeah.
make any sense. Even on a for me, even on a week 1, like Colton will program me an RP6, I'm not actually gonna hit a 6. It's like a 6, and I'm also not getting myself hyped. I'm not getting like really excited and fucking attacking the weight.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of how I think of it, anyways.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
something that's kind of something that's like coaching, like programming, like what's on the paper compared to like what's communicated, which is probably something for a different podcast. But I think that obviously as you have like somebody who maybe is not as strong as Trevor, or as big, I think the people that make the least amount of progress are the people who like I look at their sheet and like week 2 and 3 and then subsequently week 4, like all kind of the same number. Like they do too much in week 2 and then like they know I'm gonna like eviscerate them if they send me an RP9 in week 3. So they have to do like the same weight again. And then because
Yeah.
they did like a weight that was probably too heavy even for week 2, they did it twice in a row. Now they're cooked in week 4. Now they do like the same or like 5 pounds less in week 4. So they did like I don't know, like let's say like 295 bench single in week 1, then like 310 in week 2, then like 310 again in week 3, and then like because they wanted 315 so bad, and then now it's like 305 week 4 because like it was already an
Mhm.
RP9 or something. And maybe you can't jump like 100 pounds a week like Trevor, but maybe you can jump like 7.5 or 10 kilos on your bench per week rather than 2.5 kilos. Or on your squat, can you jump like maybe your squat PR is around like 500. You could jump like 15 kilos a week, like 10 minimum. Like you don't need to like if your squat PR is 227, like why are you starting your block at 210? Like it makes
Hmm.
no sense. Like where are you gonna go week to week?
No,
Yeah.
because then like if you do have a week, say on week 2 or 3, you feel bad. Like in your brain, you're not going to want to do less than you did last week. Like you're
Yeah.
giving yourself less fucking room. It doesn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and
Because
you're
then
just
if you
the quality of your back downs and the quality of your accessory, like you overshoot in week two, and now you're like, fuck this, like I'm sandbagging my accessory or my back downs, and you skip your accessories because you're in a bad mood. Then you have a bad sleep
yeah.
that night because you're just thinking about your shitty single. And now it's like this like huge like now it's like that's kind of what we call taking the shovel. Like you're just digging yourself a deeper and deeper hole. And then
Yeah.
the next week you do the same thing. You just dig yourself an even deeper hole. So yeah, just climb the ladder and take yourself out of that hole.
Yeah. And then if you're talking if you're talking about block after block as well, right? Because people I feel like there's different groups. I think some people will look at it as like this training day is all that matters. So like it says at 7 or at 6, I need to make sure it's at 6 or at 7, not below. It can't be below. No way. And then
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, what about the following days and the following weeks? And some people look at it as like a training week where like maybe they are purposely making their first days a little lighter so the last like days can thrive. And then there's people that can look at it as like, the whole like training block or the whole macro cycle. Like you can just like kind of zoom out more and more and more. And like what Colton was saying is 100% right. Same with Trevor. It's like if you're just focused on today and like if I say like this week or this block even, I want to hit that number, I need to like be close to it so I can get there. It's like you're really just shooting yourself in the foot like day after day after day. And then even the blocks they combine, it's like if you had like you're supposed to kind of the way it was written, like RP like 4 or 5 and 6, 7, end at like an 8 or 9 or whatever it is. If you're starting at 7, going to 7.5, going to 8, and then 9, and it's just like way more fatigue is added than intended, the next block's gonna be trash too. And then you might even be like lowering your start point, even though you're still trying to go heavy all the time. And so yeah, it's a slippery slope. And the other thing too is like injury can be something that comes up there. Like it might have been something that you've been doing for the past like 3 blocks, but then by the end of it, now things are starting to like occur, like your elbows are destroyed or whatever it is. So um obviously it's if you have a coach, it's up to them to help keep you in check. But if you don't listen and you just keep doing it, it's like what can they do, you know?
Yeah, I
So
think that's really common too. Like I'll program like a 6 to 7, maybe in like a week two, and somebody will send me like a clear overshoot. And I'm like, oh, like what was your RP? I always ask them, I'm like, what was your RP supposed to be? And they always just say like 7. They never say like the bottom end of the
yeah,
RP range is never even included. It's like, oh, it was like a 7. I go look, I open their sheet, it's like a 6 to 7. I'm like, so you saw a 6 to 7 and you thought, what is the absolute
9.
most I can justify for a 7? Which is like, oh, like I think it moved. It's like no, like you're making justifications to say it was a 7. It was really like an 8 or a 9, like Trev said. And I think if you have to justify your RPE, you're probably over.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I used to be like that a lot, and like probably well, not Trevor, but Colton as well. But you just learn more. But yeah, it really makes a big difference. If from the get-go you're doing that over and over and over, you're just kind of stunting your progression. Um, yeah, it's something where once you get it, you'll just look back and be like, "Oh, I was just being silly." But yeah, lots of people do it all the time. I see in the gym, or someone will hit something like someone at the gym. They're like, "Hey, can you spot me?" I'm like, "Okay, like what is it?" And they're like, "Oh, a single at like 6 or 7." And I'm like, "You almost died." So yeah,
Like I get
it's
how it happens because like you come in, you have your deload, and then you kind of start your new block, and you feel good and fresh, right? So that week 1 or 2 number might be big, but you shouldn't chase the big number in week 2. You should be wanting the big number in week 4. And if you're going heavy in like 1 and 2, it's going to be harder to hit it down the road.
Yep.
yeah, yeah. It happens a lot for people going into a meet too. Like obviously in a training block you could have kind of like a goal of where or like an idea of where you may end up for like the RPE 8. We're all gonna like in our mind be like if there is an RPE 8 single, let's say at the end of the block, you're gonna put in your mind like I could do this. And that's case scenario that you're thinking about. And same thing for like meet preps. Like people will have a single at like RPE, I don't know, 7 or 8, and it's like 8 with a misgroove is like, no, man, like, and now at the meet,
It
like
was a
you're
10.
really, yeah, you're gonna need that taper to save you, like they say, right? Or if not, like you maxed out in the gym and you're gonna have to probably take less on the platform. Yeah. But the other thing that I've found too is like programming with as a coach, like if you're finding your athletes have this situation, the scenarios happening often, you can even just put like a load cap and like a load range and then a cap. So like, obviously you're not there on the day if it's like an online coaching thing, but no matter how good they feel, you're pacing out the block. And so like week one, they cannot go above this number. And if the athlete goes above that, it's like, bro, like what? Like how did like it says
Yeah.
not more.
Yeah.
So
I mean, me personally, I like to use that as like a last resort. I really like to coach. Like you're coaching them, like coach them. But again, like some people can be a bit of a lost cause and you need to give them a bit more guidance, which is fine. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I think having, ranges or like even just communicated like, hey man, like I think we're gonna be around here, um, is completely fine. But I think having like again, like we're talking about people who are beginners, they may or may not have a coach. I think having like a growth mindset is really good. And it's okay to make mistakes as long as you learn from them. Like if you make a mistake and then you just like beat the shit, because again, that's like this is somebody who's new to power, like new to lifting, they're gonna overshoot. Like it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
even like we still like I still do it sometimes, like not on purpose, but like everyone's ego gets involved at some point. Like you want to like smash something big, like whether it's for Instagram or it's for yourself, like either way, like your ego's getting involved, right?
Yeah.
But when you're early on, I think it's important to like take that situation and be like, well, okay, well, like, why did this happen? Like, why, like, did I overshoot? And like, how can I correct it? Rather than just like beating the shit out of yourself and being super mad at yourself. And then again, just like, you're probably going to do more things. They're going to lead to more negativity rather than figuring it out and getting better.
Yeah. Well, the one thing too to keep in mind, like off of that note, is like not every training block needs to end well. Not even every competition needs to go exactly as you planned, right? The thing is like no matter what, you overshoot, you don't perform as well as you thought you would on the competition. It's like, why didn't I do that? Like, why didn't I perform? Or like you said, why did I overshoot? And then kind of learning from that and realizing that like unless you stop competing or unless you stop training, there's plenty of room to grow from it. And
Yep.
exactly as we're saying here, it's like that's why we can kind of talk about these things is because we've either coached people through them or we've been through it ourselves. And like I've had bad meets, I've had bad training day, obviously, like all of
Yeah.
these things we've done. And so you can definitely get upset about these things, but at the end of the day, they're all learning experiences.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of times, like you'll hear because it's kind of like going back to what we were talking about before. But if you have like an RP8 single and you're like, oh, I think I can do this number, it's like, so you think you can do it without failing, or you think you can do it to RP8? Like you do not need to max out in the gym. Like you don't need to hit something in the gym to hit it on the platform. Like that's really big. Like some people are like, "Oh, I just like need to do it in the gym or else like I won't be confident on the platform." Like if you peak properly, again, this is I don't know, like if you have a coach or if you're doing things on your own, either way, like don't max out in the gym, save some room for the meet. And then the taper, instead of like it saving you and like okay, it saves you from having a terrible performance. The taper could have led you to a much better performance. Like because like some people
Yeah,
will be like, "Oh, well like last time like I failed or I did an RP10 and the taper saved me." It's like, well, what would have happened if you didn't fail?
yeah,
Like maybe test that out. Like see like how that goes for you.
yeah. I know that's very
And
true.
every meat prep is completely fucking different. You can do the exact same thing and get a completely different result.
Yeah.
Just because it worked one time, it's not going to work every time.
Yeah. Yeah, even if you're following the same like approach, right? Like something can work many times and be consistent, and then it just stops working and you need to figure out what happened. But that's why like if you are coaching yourself or you have a coach, just keep track obviously of what's going on and just be aware and honest with yourself. Like did I like what was I cutting corners in? Did I tell myself I was hitting like this protein number? Did I tell myself I was hitting the RPEs accurately? Like did I go out and drink like the whole time? Like it really depends on your goals, but like at the end of the day, you can learn a lot from even these bad performances. And also that's something we try and highlight too when we have like high level lifters on here. It's like even like people like Eric Willis or I mean some of us like we've competed many times, but even people who are like world champions or competing at Sheffield, they have bad days They have performances that they're not proud of, and that's actually how they, become the person they are. Like it's really rare to see someone who only has like first place on open powerlifting and who has never, even those people, they all make mistakes. Like they've had bad days, bad meets. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember, like, especially for somebody who's on Instagram a lot, like, you're seeing the highlights for the most part. There are some people who, like, post when they have bad days and stuff, but for the overwhelming majority, you're seeing people at their best, and people aren't really posting like, when they're having a bad day, not even necessarily like a fail. Like, I mean, like, you saw like Aiden's like blooper reel or whatever he made, right? Like, some
Mhm.
people will post like their fails, like, usually later on. But like, people aren't gonna post like, oh, like, maybe like they grinded out like a shitty single, like, that was like 10 kilos below their PR. Like, you're seeing
Yeah.
either like big weights moved at a low RPE, or you're seeing like PRs.
Mhm.
That doesn't necessarily mean that
Mhm.
that's what their training looks like all the time.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Most of the time, it looks shitty and slow in our group chat.
Yeah.
You, me, and Lewis.
It's just who can move slower. But no, it's like that too. And like understanding that just because something used to or has felt light on your back or in your hands or like when you initiate off the floor, like for a deadlift, just because it's felt light doesn't like mean that you're owed it to always feel light. Like if say 200 kilos is now light to you, it can feel so heavy. For me, for example, some of the times like we'll say like the squat, like if I squatted 300 kilos and then the next week, I can go into the gym and 200 or 210, which is like hundreds of pounds less, can feel like, honestly, like arguably like the same on my back or even heavier, right? Like it's
Yeah,
like that.
especially if you're not fired up. Like, the more fired up I am personally, like, the lighter the weights feel in my back. Obviously, like, bracing and all that kind of stuff and positioning matters. But like, even like same session, dude. If I do anything over like 300 kilos, like, I have to back it down so much, like a
Mhm.
minimum of 50 keys. Like, and then after that, like, if I do like 250 for a back down, I'm going to like three reds. I'm not saying that that's smart, but like, that's kind of like why you don't want to hit like super heavy singles all the time. I mean, I'm more of an extreme example because like I'm bigger, I'm like more sensitive to fatigue. But like, if I hit a big single, like, I'm actually done. Like, not even just next week, but like the same session, like, I'm toast.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. That's all I got. So
Yep. Yeah, it's like that. And like also it all is dependent on like what you need in terms of like your individualized like programming stuff or like what you respond well to. Because everything we said is very true, especially for us and like for me and Colton, like a lot of people we coach. But like you could have some people who need to touch like heavier intensities more often as well, especially on bench and stuff.
yeah,
So like I agree with you 100% Colton, but just like for everyone listening too, because I feel like when we say things like it could be like that's the answer but also like
yeah,
sometimes you need more, right? So it does depend, but I agree with what you guys are saying a lot. People need to like pace things out better and just have like that delayed gratification for sure. um so yeah, no, I'm big on that too. And one thing I really wanted to bring up too, which we've talked about with many lifters on the podcast, is injury. And unfortunately, it happens decently often in powerlifting. Like if you just think about what powerlifting is, like we're lifting maximal loads. No matter how heavy it is for you, it's like, or in general, it's just a heavy load. Whether it's 100 kilos or 300 or 400 kilos, if it's heavy to you and you're lifting it, it's high exertion, and you're doing that too often. Or even if you're doing everything correctly, following your plan, you can get hurt. And when you get hurt, it's pretty inevitable. I think like everyone's had like a little thing, at least. When it happens, it's not so over. You don't have to like, give up. And like it's the same thing as a bad session in a way. It's like you can like be upset about it because it does suck. But then just like be ready to learn and get to work and you'll be okay. It just really depends on the mindset and obviously the extent of the injury. But a lot of the time I've seen people get hurt once and they're out. But you look at like a lot of the top level lifters, and because it takes so long to get strong, they get hurt many times on their journey. And it's like it can be a learning experience, just like everything else we've mentioned. But like you guys have both dealt with injuries, no?
Yeah, I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah,
Getting
I
them,
mean, yeah,
getting them,
for
I
me,
should
like,
say.
not, yeah, I feel like nothing like insanely major. I feel like most powerlifting injuries are not that serious. Like everyone thinks if they have like a back tweak, they think that they,
It's
I
over.
don't know, they like they literally like blew their spine out, and it's like usually it's not that big of a deal. It's just like a slight muscle strain or whatever. Um, but yeah, usually, like, again, you need to treat it seriously because like it can be serious, but I think just continuing to move and staying positive is really important.
Yep.
Psychology plays a huge role in pain. Um, but I just want to kind of tie back to what you were saying before, like with like a high frequency bencher, like different things work for different people. I do agree, but like the injury thing is kind of why I think chasing the magic micro, like that's a downfall of it. Because it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
like this might work very well, but it's like how sustainable is it? Like,
Hmm.
yeah, like if you're benching like 4, maybe 5 days a week, again, this can work. I'm not saying it's wrong, but a lot of times, like what is the most optimal for you to get strong really fast isn't what's going to help you like over a long period of time. And maybe you need to save that like magic micro for like your meet prep or for certain times of the year, or maybe even just for, like the most important meet of the year, and not something that you can just do all the time. Because people like fall in love with, oh, like this like high intensity, like high volume, high frequency worked really well, so like that's what works for me, and that's what I need to keep doing. But like there's a time and place, right? You can't just always be pushing volume, intensity, and frequency all at the same time, all the time.
Oh yeah, no, that's very, very, very true. A lot of the time, you'll see. I'd say for most people, it obviously depends, but if you just like up the intensity and frequency and volume, even all three at once, depending on like how much they're currently doing, you'll see an uptick in performance. But then a lot of the people, it'll last maybe a block at most, or even before that, you'll start to feel like the symptoms that like whatever a random old injury kind of flares up. It's um it's a normal thing where like people will experience that under like high frequency bench or just lots of volume and intensity. But yeah, pretty much what I've found is like you can bump those dials, especially if it's like a in shape lifter, you could say with a good technique, and they will perform better. But yeah, it's like it won't last as long as people think. So
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be injuries. There's no way that any coach has never had any lifters get injured. It's
yeah,
just more so about, or even if you're self-coach, it doesn't matter if you're self-coach or have a coach. It's really just about doing things that are going to minimize the risk and minimize the, like how extreme the injury is. You know what I mean? Like having a little bit of like elbow pain or shoulder pain is one thing, but like literally like having like severe muscle strains because you've been going crazy, or having like tendinopathy that never goes away because you were just doing such an insane amount of frequency and volume. Like those are things that you want to avoid, right? It's not something that is like, again, like we would all be lying, or like me and you at least, because we coach people, would be lying if we said like, oh, I've never had an athlete with an injury or pain before. But again, it's just about like how can we reduce the risk while still trying to get stronger. Like obviously people
yeah,
who are more competitive or people who have higher aspirations, you're going to kind of push those limits a little bit more often compared to somebody who's just like training for fun or whatever. So like again, like that depends on what your goals are and like where you are in reality. But yeah, that's just something that you want to try to minimize and train as sustainable as possible.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree 100%.
If you're doing like that, like the magic micro over and over and over again, it may lose its potency. So again, it's not that it's a bad strategy. Like I'm not like for me, like I like to keep the programming as consistent as possible. And then just like make slight changes depending on like maybe in the off season we're working on a certain variation. And as we're getting closer to a competition, we're getting a bit more specific, maybe a bit more intensity, whatever the case is. But if you're just running that magic micro constantly, like it's going to lose its potency compared to if you're just training and like staying healthy and getting a bit stronger, and then when the time is right, like throwing it in, now it's going to have its potency again and it's going to work really well for the most part. I mean, like you said before, too, like sometimes things work and sometimes they don't, but like we're just trying to make decisions that like we think this is going to work based on what has worked before, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And sometimes they work till they don't, and you're fucked, and your body just turns into dust.
Holy crap! Is that what you're experiencing, Trevor?
Not right now. Maybe a couple years ago.
Yeah, yeah. No, Trevor's finally back to life now.
Slowly but surely.
Yep.
I think the number one thing for me, like being hurt at first, I was scared to do anything. I'm like, I hurt. I just need to lay in bed and do fucking nothing. You won't get better laying in bed doing nothing. Like if you're really fucked up, obviously you have to, but I find most muscle strains, like you can work through them. Like you can find something to do to like get some blood in there and move it around and stretch it a bit. And I found for me that was like the best thing. Once like got out of bed and was like, okay, I just need to fucking do something, like that's when it started getting better.
Yep. Movement is therapy
Yep.
for sure. Motion is lotion works too.
Yep. Sitting on your ass all day is not.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of got to find like an entry point so that you can do some sort of the movement without like immense pain and then just work it up from there. So like you could, let's say your back's really bad, like you could pull off blocks. If you can't hit depth without like bad pain, you can even just squat like as deep as you can without that like high level of discomfort coming to get
Or
you.
like a box squat or something, like something to reduce the
Yeah.
range of motion, or pressing with a block,
Even
or
even
pressing with
just
a
even just changing your stance and stuff to take like less stress off your knees, or if it's like an adductor or whatever. Even if you have to use less weight, like still doing the movement in just some kind of way that you can do it that doesn't really hurt is gonna help.
Yeah,
yeah,
I think also like leaving your ego out of it, like, you're hurt, it's okay, you're gonna get better. Long as you do the right things yourself. Just if you're used to loading, like say you're at a commercial gym, you're used to loading like 4 plates, and now you can only load like 1 plate or less or 185. It's like it doesn't matter. Like you need to get better. Like that's the main goal. So you gotta just like leave your ego at the door, do what you can, and then just slowly let the weights come back. And the one last thing I'd say about injury is once you start to feel a bit better, you shouldn't just then hop back into doing like the big loads that you were used to because that's where
yes.
like the things are going to be re-aggravated, and that's a big mistake. I think I've probably made it like once or twice before when I like had started and gotten like little tweaks or injuries or I was in pain. You're like, oh, I feel good again, and then you just load up what you're back to square one again. You're hurt. So
Yeah, it's like you've been pulling like 135 or 225. Like you're pulling off the floor again. You're pulling like 135, 225 with like a little bit of pain, and then you're pain free, and then you're like, fuck it, I'm loading 5 plates today.
yeah,
It's like, well, maybe we need to like, have a bit more, a bit of a smarter plan to this graded exposure, right? And just take it slow, even if you do feel good. And that's kind of when like those load caps that you were talking about earlier, Luke. I think that's when they're the most valuable,
yeah,
is when you're dealing with something like that, and it's like, I don't even care how good you feel, you're not going over this.
yeah, yeah. No, no, those are yeah. You can't go over it. You have to slowly allow yourself to get used to those loads. But yeah, it's a shame when like you're so close and then you're just gonna look back, be like, oh, I was there, and I just slammed the door shut on my face again. So yeah, that's a big one, pacing it out.
You would tell yourself when you're a younger lifter, like advice for younger lifters or new power lifters.
Oh, don't be a fucking idiot. That's pretty much it.
Is there anything that you did in the past, like when you were just getting into it, that you're like, oh, I can't believe I thought that that was good, or like I should have done that better?
Uh, Probably just like diet and tracking stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Mostly. I didn't really start doing that till like probably when I started with Colton, so like 2 years.
Oh damn. Did we touch
I
on comparing yourself to others, or I
We
guess a
did
little?
we
Did
talked a
we?
little bit about Instagram lifters and stuff, but one
Yeah.
thing that I've seen, especially with like sub juniors, um, I think that sometimes we need to aim for progress and not perfection. It's like they're like making like steady gains, that their technique is getting better, they're getting stronger, but they're just picking themselves apart and like just like chirping, just harshing themselves over and
Yeah.
over and over again, and like um I think that's just an easy way to get burnt out and just not enjoy. Like obviously, it's like if we have technique issues, yeah, like we want to get better over time. But you're also new to power, like you're new to lifting. Your technique is just going to get better as you just continue to do it more, as you practice it more. If you're
Yeah.
practicing like a new cue every session, you are getting nowhere.
Mhm.
So like if things are going well and you have like a good structure, like maybe you're squatting like twice a week, you're doing 3 or 4 sets per session, that feels really good and recoverable for you, and you're making progress. Yes, maybe your squat's not perfect, but that's okay. Like we're just trying to get better over time and focusing on being absolutely like because your form's gonna break down at some point. Like even like the best lifters, their technique might look like just so smooth all the time, but when they get to an RP10, there's gonna be some breakdown somewhere. So it's okay to have a little bit of breakdown in your training as well. And your body's gonna be more resilient to different positions too, right? So I think just aiming for progress and not perfection is something that's really important when you're newer in lifting. Like maybe you're working on your bench arch and it looks like shit because you've never like moved your body in that way before. As long as you're just like trying to improve it over time, like that's what matters. Like you might not have an arch like Liam overnight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think yeah, just trying to do the things that are going to help you get better rather than being perfect.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of those little cues too, when you first put them in, they just feel like shit. But you need to do it for like 2, 3 blocks, and then it's gonna start to click.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Like if your coach or even someone at the gym gives you like a cue, obviously listen to your coach, but if you don't have one, and you're trying to implement it, it's not, well, I mean, maybe it'll click like right away and it's like, wow, that was like, I can't believe, but more than likely it's going to take, like Trevor said, at least a few sessions, if not a few blocks to really like cement in there. And the one thing I'd also say is like, you obviously know how to lift unless you're doing something really sketchy where you're going to hurt yourself, like kind of know that the cue will take a while to like be worked in there and take it with a grain of salt. Like if someone says to do something, you don't have to completely forget what you were doing because you're obviously quite good and efficient at the lift already. You just need to slowly get there and bridge that gap.
Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be some cues that people are like, "Wow, like that felt amazing," but for the most part, like it's gonna like especially with not even a cue, but more so like a technique change. Like say you're like changing grips, like you're moving your hands out wider, moving them in closer, or maybe you were squatting really wide before and we're moving the stance in a little bit, um, or whatever. Maybe you're going from conventional to sumo. It's not gonna feel like when you're making that drastic of a change, like you're so used to training a certain way, like changes that are big like that are gonna take a while. So like it's okay for it to not feel good right away. And you can also just like start by going a little bit lighter. Like we were talking about block pacing, it's like maybe don't introduce a new technique in week 4. Like maybe let's introduce like the new cue or the new technique in like week 1 and then slowly like build on that over the weeks. And again, it's like you don't have to get so caught up in like, oh, it needs to be good by week 4. Like you got to think like multiple blocks in advance, right? Or multiple like just a longer period of time if you don't know what a block is. You probably aren't watching this podcast if you don't know what a block is. But but
You never
yeah, it's
know.
like
Yeah.
you can just think long term and it's okay. Like, and it's also okay if those things don't work. Like if you make a technique change and if it doesn't feel good day 1 and you change it, like, dude, what are you doing? But if it doesn't feel good 3 blocks later, it's like, okay, well, then maybe that didn't work and we can try something else.
Mhm. One thing I'd say too about the switch from conventional to sumo, that's usually the switch people make and not back. But either way, if you're trying a whole like completely way of deadlifting, an entirely different way, it's not going to feel good right away, likely. And you also don't have to ditch, say, if you're going from conventional to sumo, you don't have to ditch conventional. Like you can keep conventional in there and just sprinkle the sumo in because you probably will not feel good in that stance right away anyway. You should keep the conventional because it's going to continue helping you getting stronger, and just slowly but surely get better and more efficient at the sumo. And then maybe like down the line, think about having 2 sumo days. But I see a lot of people just hop in, or not a lot, but I see people hop into 2 sumo days, and it's like it's
Yeah.
not going to feel good. And now you're putting way more stress on different muscle groups that aren't used to it. It's probably going to like tank your squat. Recovery will be different. It's just not going to be good, and like the lift probably won't thrive for a little bit anyway. It's pretty different.
Yeah, I think that's an important note too. Like when like say you are like at the point where you want to add a second sumo day in, it could be anything. It could be any lift. Like maybe you're trying to add in a fourth bench day or whatever. But let's just go with the sumo example. You don't need to add 3 sets or 4 sets. Like
Right.
you can go from like sometimes what I'll do with guys who pull sumo and they're doing like one sumo day, one conventional day, when it's like okay, like starting to get closer to a meet, we want to start increasing the exposure on the sumo. I'll do like 1 set of sumo and then like 2 or 3 sets of back down conventional or like RDLs or whatever,
Mhm.
just to make sure that the posterior chain is continuing to be built rather than just
Yep.
going like, okay, we were doing like three sets of conventional on the secondary. Now we're just going to do like four sets of sumo, and then just add that much extra like strain on that position, which is kind of more of an extreme position in terms of your adductors and all that. Like depending on how you're built, like some people are just leverage gods and they can get away with like doing insane amount of like volume and frequency. But if you're not a leverage god, then you just increase those sets slowly. Like same thing if you're going from like 3 bench days to 4, like you don't need to add in like a full like 5 sets. Like you can start with like 1 or 2 sets on that fourth day.
Yeah. Yeah, just getting used to the frequency. The frequency alone, say for bench, for that example, just lying down, setting up and practicing benching, even if it's like a single or a set of five, it's not even that heavy. Just like that exposure can really help too. Especially
Yeah,
like assuming you're adding like a fifth day, it's probably like a pretty efficient bencher, like wide grip.
yeah.
So yeah, that'll even help just like the extra practice. So that's something that I see people doing incorrectly, right? Like you don't have to hop into things all the time. Full swing.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of more like a programming strategies thing, but it could be helpful for somebody who's new and is experimenting with different frequencies. You don't have to increase weekly sets or volume to increase frequency either. Like let's say you do like 10 sets a week on three exposures. So you're doing like 3 bench days, 10 sets total. You could just, if you want to do a fourth day and see how that feels, you can just take a session where you have 4 sets and just split that into 2 sessions that both have 2 sets. Like
Mhm.
instead of, oh, you don't always have to increase the volume or the set count just because you're increasing frequency. Same thing with decreasing frequency too. Maybe you can't handle benching 4 days a week. Um, but you want to do 3 days, you don't need to reduce the volume. Maybe you can just add it like, 1 set to each of the 3 days, and you have the same volume. But you can actually handle that because you needed more recovery between your bench days. Again, it depends on each person. Like for me, I cannot handle like bench frequency at all. I can only handle benching like twice a week. Even when I would take my third day super light, like it didn't matter how light I went, like it would just feel terrible. But I can handle quite a bit of volume on like one day. Whereas some people like cannot handle very much on one day, but they can handle like a ton of exposures.
Yep. No, that's very true. Because especially if you're newer, you might hear like, okay, it's 10 sets. Like adding a day or moving a day, like to having less or more days, it doesn't make a difference. But it does because like let's say you're squatting twice a week as well, like the shoulder pressure, like getting into that position, like under the barbell for the squat as well, and then just pressing that often and loading those joints up can definitely make a difference. So even though it's the same amount of workload, the way that you implement it can make a big change too. So yeah. And the other thing too is like a lot of people, if you're actually new and you're listening to this, you probably or you might squat high bar, and majority of powerlifters you'll see will be squatting low bar. And it will feel pretty shitty when you start low bar for the most part. Like I haven't really had someone come from only squatting high bar ever and then starting low bar and just being like, oh, this is amazing right off the bat. Because it is quite different and you have to be able to set your shelf really nicely. Yeah, it's quite different. So it might not seem like a big difference, even if your low bar is quite high on your back. It's still pretty different, and it'll affect your upper body joints differently potentially as well. So that's another one where you might not want to go full swing from high bar into low bar.
Yeah, that's a good point because if you are newer and you want to try out low bar, you don't need to switch like all six or whatever, however many sets you're doing a week, 6 or 8 sets or whatever. They don't need to all go from high bar to low bar.
Yeah.
You can just try like maybe like one low bar day, one high bar day, or even just like a couple sets of low bar on one day. You don't need to like make the full switch to all low bar. And then, like you said, Luke, now like your elbows are cooked and you can't bench. Because like we were talking about before, it's like not like every session does not exist in a vacuum. Like every session affects another session, every week affects the next week, every block affects the next block, right? So that's something you can to consider like when you're starting out or if you're more experienced too. Like you have to make sure that you're making decisions that are smart for yourself to have the best total possible. Not just like, oh, like what is the best for just my squat? Because what's
Mhm.
best for just your squat might not be what's best for your total.
Yeah. Yeah, no, if you it's the same thing with like that golden microcycle or training block. Like if you run it and it's worked, but if you run it for too long, it can cause like pain or it can make you just get injured. Same thing with like going from high bar to like low bar twice a week. It might work for like the week, 2 weeks, three, the training block. But down the line, especially as like bench and the squat are getting heavier, you're getting better at low bar, you could like have those joints kind of act up. So that's something to keep in mind too. It's just the whole thing I feel like we've been saying, in a sense, like simplified for pretty much everything is like it's gonna take some time. Just kind of enjoy that process, and nothing needs to happen or be perfect. Like in the one session, like each individual session doesn't matter that much, and things don't need to all click at once. Like you can, let things play out. But yeah, I think that's pretty much a good point to wrap it up.
I have one
Hey,
last thing for my younger self is don't pull sumo. Just stop. Just don't do it.
yeah, I need to watch one of those videos again of you pulling sumo.
It was special.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember when you were saying like Luke, you were saying like you usually people go from conventional to sumo, not the other way around. I remember like I can't remember when this was. I think before I even started coaching Trev, he told me he was like, dude, just stop doing sumo. Like just pull conventional and you'll hit a PR in like 5 months. And I just like resisted it for so long. And then eventually like I did it. And then like 5 months later I hit a PR like on the platform.
Oh
And
wow, he
I didn't
called it
even I didn't even
perfectly.
keep sumo in at all. I just like I remember I was like in week four. I was in week four of a block. Definitely don't do this if you're a listener, or like a beginner. But I was in week four and I went against everything that I believe in. And I was like, sumo feels terrible right now. I'm just gonna pull conventional. And I hadn't pulled conventional in like 2 or 3 years because whenever I'd pulled conventional, it would give me like vertigo for some reason. I get super dizzy. So I
Oh
wasn't doing
wow.
like I couldn't do RDLs, I couldn't pull conventional or anything for a long time. And I just pulled conventional, and it's like I know it's not that impressive, but like I just ripped 250 like super baby, and I was like, okay, I'm sumo off. I just never really pulled sumo again.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
I think I remember that because you sent it to me, Lou and me, and I was like, "Yeah, we got him."
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Good times.
One last thing, I guess, as well is like kind of how you guys both said, like you wish you never pulled sumo or like just ditch sumo back then. And kind of in relation to comparing yourself to others, like you might see someone who squats extremely upright. That might be good for their leverage. Don't try and copy them necessarily. You might see someone on max grip. Oh, like that's leverage maxing. That's better. It's not for everybody. Hook grip
Yeah,
is not for everybody. I learned that one. Just because like when hook grip feels good, it feels real good. Cause it's like, oh, I'm not gonna drop. Like it's not as much as a grip thing. It's more of like a skill, and obviously
if it's
some
locked
grip is
in, it's
involved
locked
as
in. Yeah,
well. Yeah, it's like yeah, it can feel really good. And so I kind of just dwelled on that. Like I'm gonna like one day hook will never be an issue, but it always kind of had like its issues. And it's like okay, well at the end of the day, I don't want to keep being like, oh, like it's my hook, and if my thumb's not even ripped, like just like those silly things, I'd rather just switch it and realize when things aren't for you. I think is a big thing that you could learn, but definitely not trying to copy your favorite lifters or like the trend for like how to do a lift or that could also be very helpful for people.
I think that's a huge point because if you're one of those people who are like, oh, they only pull that much because they pull sumo, like you're doing that cope. Like, dude, you are coping, bro. Like, people who have big sumos also have big conventional deadlifts because they have good leverages normally for both stances. Like, if you have super
Mhm.
long arms, you're gonna have like probably a good deadlift like either way. I mean, like look like Nick. He like has like a huge sumo and a huge conventional. Like he would still have a big deadlift if he pulled conventional, you
Mhm.
know? But yeah, like if you're one of those people who are like, well, I bench close grip, so I'm technically stronger than somebody who benches wide grip or whatever, like, yeah, just stop coping and just start getting stronger.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's it's funny. It's like that's another big one. Just get stronger. Like don't worry about things so much. Like even when you're getting into powerlifting, if you're everyone SPDs like has SPD days sometimes too. Like does it often. Like at the end of the day, just put on some size. If you haven't really been training outside of powerlifting for long, you don't need to get super specific right away. Put on mass, get big, get jacked because that's only going to help you. But yeah, that kind of brings back to like the start of the podcast. But
Yeah, don't
um,
sweat the minutia.
mhm.
That was a
What
big
he
word.
said.
The minute minutia. Yeah, don't worry about that. Just get bigger and stronger.
Yep,
You just started lifting, so that's how you can become a freak. Just get big and strong.
absolutely. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Colton, for coming on the pod again, saving the day yet again, man.
Thanks for having me, boys. Appreciate it.
Yep. And again, anyone listening, Colton, what's your Instagram?
Colton_PRC. And if you are looking for coaching or you just want to hop on a call with me, we can talk about it. Just shoot me a message or fill out my form.
Yep. Okay. You guys hit him up. And again, thank you, Colton. All right, guys. Peace.